Good morning, good evening, wherever you may be across the nation or around the world. My name is Shane Skwarek, and on behalf of SFX.com Small Business Solutions, I am back once again to bring you another small business tip segment with entrepreneurs, with startups, with industry professionals, and just about anybody else I can find that I think would be really worth it for you guys to sit down with. Today, in addition to really completely and utterly overbranding my heck out of myself, I am welcomed by Danielle Zilg, who is the Senior Digital Marketing Manager for CareCentrix, which is the leading post-acute and home health care company provider in the entire United States. Danielle has a plethora of marketing experience in the digital sphere. Danielle, welcome, and thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Shane, and thank you for having me. Hello, everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. It's my pleasure. So tell us a little bit about your background. I said you worked for CareCentrix. You're the Senior Digital Marketing Manager. What does that role entail?
So my current role right now, I would say I'm an army of one. I'm kind of a one-woman show over here doing a lot of, digital initiatives, whether that be our website and working with SFX or doing some of our online brand reputation, social media, as well as, really optimizing our demand gen and also lead generation strategies. So, and also kind of being that center of excellence for our organization from a digital perspective. So, for, working with network management or our providers or our patients, definitely being that, digital strategic voice within the organization.
That's incredible. And clearly you didn't wake up one day and all of a sudden have this role. What sort of led you to this? Tell me a little bit about your background in the industry.
Yeah, sure. So I started out actually, ironically, at a software development firm that had an e-commerce business called Blooms by the Box. And we actually sold back in the day like bulk flowers to brides that wanted to save money and do DIY bouquets. That does not sound like my cup of tea, but good for people who want to save a little bit of money. So that really introduced me to the digital space, and also when the digital space was, I'm sure, Shane, you remember the days when link building was literally going on a blog and putting your company's website in the comment of the blog.
It used to be super easy back then.
Oh yeah, I mean, you could do that for hours and
yeah, seriously.
really kind of bring up your domain authority just by doing some simple tricks. That was also the early days of SEO, early days of search, early days of even social media. So really, it was fun to see kind of the evolution. I worked there for a couple of years. See the evolution from how the digital space really did expand from there. And then, of course, Facebook came into play, Twitter, LinkedIn, what have you. And then from there, I did pop around. I did go to an ad agency just to kind of stretch my wings there, learned how to, I will say, with everybody out there, if you want to learn how to work hard, I say working for an ad agency is like being in the Marines. They train you to work hard. So
around the clock nonstop, I'm sure, right?
Oh, yeah. Around the clock, nonstop, deadlines, but also, the creative, aspect of that and the ingenuity is great being in that kind of space. So I really do think I thrive in the, digital space as well as being a very creative individual, being a marketer. So that kind of led me to just different roles. I then went back on the corporate side for a bit, then also went back to the agency side to be a digital project manager, where I learned kind of more of a technical side, which then brought me to my latest two companies that were kind of definitely more, enterprise on the corporate side, being, a digital manager or a senior digital manager. So I think my experience in all those, in my early on in my career really did set me up for success to be, not only on the very strategic side of digital marketing, but also the tactic side. So I think that combination really did set me up to be kind of where I am today.
Jumping back to Blooms in a Box, I thought that to be kind of a unique idea. It was a startup business, I would assume at the time, no? Yeah, so it's, the unique challenges that would come with that.
Like an e-commerce, yeah. So the firm was a software development firm, and they had started this, e-commerce side of the business that they were like, hey, we have all the resources in-house, we have a partnership, let's just make this happen. And I would say that I definitely, it was a very, startup culture. I was, once again, an army of one there. I had a designer to help me with some of the design work, but for the most part, I I did all kind of the online merchandising. I was also a customer service rep, which taught me early on, you do not want to mess with brides on their wedding day, so it gave me a tough skin. So that was kind of a learning experience. But yeah, to see that once again, to see, you know, to always make sure you're agile and always adaptable to not only the marketplace, but also what's going on. You know, it was a very, as you probably remember, not as a structured time for the digital space. There, like, and I mean, Google did not do, you know, make their algorithm updates as frequently. So it actually was better for probably the business, because you can lay that
not
foundation
much changed.
Really,
You did your work and the work kind of stuck
accelerate
for a
your
little while.
growth. Exactly. For now, it's, you know, they make those updates and they might not even tell you, and then your SEO is, you don't show up on the first page anymore, and you're like, why? Back then, it was actually easier to build that, you know, that ranking, if you will, and kind of build your credibility out in the engines, because, you know, they were just starting kind of out too. So it was a really interesting time. I learned a lot there. And it kind of, as I said, it really kind of set me up and really made me fall in love with the digital space. So I'll always be grateful for that firm for what they kind of made the trajectory for my career, which is great.
You know, in all our conversations over the years, we've always talked from a small business and kind of a startup mindset. And I've always considered you an entrepreneur, even though, you know, you haven't yet launched your own full business. And we'll dive into this a little bit later, kind of some projects you have in mind. But you've always sort of had a hand in either the growth of enterprise type businesses like CareCentrix and all the new initiatives they're rolling out, or something like Bloom in a Box, which always intrigues me, because I think what a lot of people don't realize when they dive into their small businesses, you do have to wear a lot of hats. And when you're working in these environments, you know, those hats, it might, you know, fresh out of college, you didn't necessarily expect to be dealing with customer service. You thought you're going to be working in ads. And
nope.
So, you know, it's a lot of trial by fire sometimes, you know, for lack of another common expression. What are some of the mistakes you kind of found, be it in a small business environment like Bloom in a Box that was kind of growing, or in a larger scale company that you kind of evolved into later in your career? What kind of mistakes do you think what kind of mistakes have you seen kind of repeat themselves over time, or do you see customers making all the time?
All right, I will start with a larger organization example first. I will say from a scale perspective, you know, obviously with smaller organizations, you have more control. As you grow and as you scale, you lose some of that, you lose sight of that. I've seen companies, unfortunately, lose sight of their vision, but I will say, all in all, in business in general, I think the organizations that are people first are the most successful. They recognize that their people are their most important resource, and, you know, kind of build their culture around that. I think that really is important, and setting that tone of your culture. And not only that, just from a marketing perspective, your employees, or your, you know, and, you know, whether they be, you know, you're a team of 5, an enterprise, you know, a large company of thousands of people, they are your biggest advocates, and they are your biggest marketing tools. I always say this from at least the marketing perspective: if your employees don't know what you do and can't clearly say what you do, then how do you expect the market to? So you need to make sure that, you know, that's ingrained in your culture. And, you know, I always say, do not underestimate the power of, you know, your employees, just from a, you know, a people perspective. They are your 100% biggest advocates.
Yeah, you know, it's funny, that kind of falls in line. We did another interview back by the time people are seeing this one, maybe a week or so ago, and it was more with a concentration in sales. And although sales and marketing do kind of go hand in hand quite a bit, the exact same point was brought up, and I think you're going to hear it as a kind of recurring theme all the time, is your biggest advocates are your employees. And if they know and they're fully aware by proper training, you know, whatever it might be, they can get the job done for you. And that's an awesome point. It's kind of funny to just, you know, hear these same points brought up over and over again. You know, outside of, I think, just employees and training and kind of your vision, having that set away, what other kind of strategies do you think are effective to use in a small business environment, or that you've seen really work better than others?
Yeah, so I guess if you're in a small business environment, even if you're in a larger you know, market, I think starting out initially, whether you're looking to, you know, reevaluate your marketing, always do a SWOT analysis. For those out there who do not know what SWOT stands for, it stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Looking at your business and making sure you do that, I think is important, because then you're going to know where to focus. That is your foundation to anything, really, is that initial SWOT analysis. From there, you can also do, in parallel or after, do a, you know, market analysis, as well as then do a competitive analysis. I mean, you can, as you business owners out there, you know the pulse of your market better than I do. But I would say start with you first, start with your company, start with what you know, and do those, do that SWOT analysis, and also the opportunities and threats in that analysis will, show you the opportunities in the market. So it is kind of ties in there. I think obviously having a plan is, essential. I say this is going on my tombstone. Failing to plan is planning to fail. If you do not have a plan, you will, I know, kind of funny, but you will not, if you do not have a plan, you will not succeed. I think I remember watching Shark Tank one day and Robert Herjavec said, a goal without a plan or a goal without a timeline is just a wish. So if you don't set plans and have,
I love Robert.
Goals,
I love Robert.
Yeah, I know. Robert's the best. Robert's my favorite. But if you don't have a plan and then a timeline and then goals against that timeline that you're, holding yourself and your business accountable for, it's just a wish at that point. It's a dream that you can have, overnight. And that's kind of what a big thing, it's specifically in the corporate level, but also when you're starting out is really set those goals.
Sure.
Make sure that it's short-term or long-term, but make sure you're working towards a common goal. I would say.
Now, with some of the competitive analysis and trying to figure out what your target market is, I know a lot of small businesses really struggle with that. If let's say you're opening up a retail shop in a very specific municipality, how do you advise people to go and find out, if their target market even exists there outside of the obvious? Finding some basic demographic information about the area is usually pretty easy to do, especially nowadays. Google and Wikipedia, you can pretty much find that out about anything in any major city. What other things would you recommend, or are there specific tools that you might use that might kind of steer people the right direction to be able to make those decisions and those determinations a little bit in advance?
I know there definitely are some, sites out there that do, market analysis. Specifically, I think in like the software space, there's that like G2 Crowd, website that basically if you put in a company, you can see kind of the market kind of axes, if you will. But honestly, I will say this might sound a little, it might be a little gritty, but look at, your competitors across, social media. I think you can see by like nowadays we're in a time where everybody's following everybody. You can see kind of the different demographics by just absorbing that content and kind of what their followers are saying, or even the content that they are, distributing. There's definitely for every target market, there's a certain piece of content that's going to resonate with each one of them. And you can see by the content people are, distributing across their channels of what their market might be or what the messaging is. And that you can kind of see that if you just look at maybe 2 or 3 of your main competitors, you can get a better idea of the audience that they might be speaking to, and then kind of do your research from there.
That's excellent. One of the other things I've kind of noticed, especially in the marketing space, is by watching this video, I'm sorry to everyone that's out there in Facebook land right now, because your feed is going to be obliterated probably by the end of today with additional marketing videos and advertisements coming up. And that kind of brings me to my next point, is there's so many tools out there that are getting blasted to people all the time, whether it be to improve your ads, first placement on Google with SEO, or anything in between, overnight success stories. Obviously, overnight success stories aren't really the case. Otherwise, we'd all be doing it. We'd all be successful. And then really there'd be no issue for these people to be posting stuff up there. Are there tools or tricks or strategies that you typically lean on or recommend to new owners or entrepreneurs that they can kind of implement without, having the level of experience you do in marketing, and without really having to break the bank? Sort of those introductory type tools that might kind of give them a leg up in starting things off.
The number one tool, especially if you're just kind of starting out in marketing or don't really have any insights, is there are a ton of companies out there. I would say one of my favorites, if you're in kind of the lead generation or inbound space, is HubSpot. That you can sign up for their blog or their newsletter. There's a ton of companies. If you're in a specific market and there is a market leader, go to their website, see if they have a blog. Normally, if they're an industry leader, they will have some sort of content that you can digest. When it comes to tools, there's so many when it comes to, digital. Anybody who has a website, I'm sure you agree, Shane, that, your website is now the new storefront. So if you're not, putting money in your website or trying to build your web presence, that to me is a big miss. So you can utilize. Exactly. I knew we spoke the same language there, but I think that there are obviously tools, as WordPress and any type of digital tools that you can go to. Just even the forums, you can learn a lot on. But from a design perspective, I will say I've discovered this tool at one of my previous jobs where I was kind of once again an army of one. If you struggle and you don't have access to a graphic designer, Canva is an excellent free resource. It is basically I call it, sorry, Canva. I call it a poor man's Photoshop because, sorry, if anybody from Canva is watching, I apologize. Because it's Photoshop, as many of you probably know, is a paid, Adobe subscription, and it is quite pricey for the Creative Cloud. So, you can go to Canva, you can make, banners for your website easily for free. You can make any social media post. So I really do say if you're starting out and really want to build your brand from a design perspective, Canva, you'll love it. And it's free, and you can, download all your designs for free there. And then lastly, I know, to kind of bring it full circle to kind of what we were talking about before, I think people's biggest tool is actually the people they know. So as an entrepreneur, whether you're maybe starting out or even a small business, work your network, build mentorships, build relationships. I mean, I had a phone call this past weekend with a mentor of mine, and the insights and the, motivation and the inspiration I gained from that one phone call was priceless. So I think building a strong network and building, and even having, asking people, working LinkedIn and going to different LinkedIn groups in your industry and, not being afraid to put yourself out there is important.
That's actually completely sound advice too, because I don't think you really realize how many people that you know or have kind of encountered over the course of your life can help you or mutually help each other throughout your business objectives once you actually start to reach out. And you think about all the hundreds or in some cases thousands of friends you have on Facebook or have on LinkedIn or Twitter, and how quickly they're willing to support you when you post a link up to your business. And I can't tell you how many times, you and I have talked about this 1,000 times, how people will literally have these businesses, you don't even know about it, and you just push them and push them. Just, why don't you post a link up there? Just post something up there saying you're doing this. And they're just like, no, I don't want to bug people. And it's not about that. People, they won't like you're not forcing them to like your page. You won't know the difference if they saw your post or not. But if you go out there and try it, or in casual conversation with them, say something, don't pester people, don't obliterate them with emails or keep sending them spammy messages. That's stupid. Nobody likes that. But obviously, some posts here and there that are thoughtful, or, when you record a video and post it on your social media account and ask people to like for it, obviously these types of strategies get a little exposure, and yeah, for sure. I think your network's super helpful.
And kind of going back to what we were talking about before about, your market, is use your, your network, your friends as your focus group, use them to test
it's a good
different
point.
things. And I use that kind of experimental marketing, because I will say, for me to do a pilot campaign, at my current company, we're putting money towards it. So that's money that I could have, spent somewhere else. And, going back to, big mistakes companies make. Companies waste a lot of money testing things or piloting things or beta things. When you hear those words, it basically is like, we're just trying this out. We're going to throw some money towards it. It's not really the return on investment. And true marketing is supposed to give you a return on investment. That's the role of marketing, is to, expand your reach and then potentially bring in more revenue at the end of the day. So.
And if you've got good friends, those friends you're pinging for feedback will tell you the truth. They'll tell you if what you're doing is terrible, so don't worry. Kind of jumping back to Canva, that's a great tool. You're using Canva a lot yourself?
Actually, well, I mean, at CareCentrics, we do have a visual designer, but for those one little kind of, actually, I had him create me kind of a toolkit, or a digital toolbox, if you will, of just some typical, templates for some quotes or for some PRs or blogs that I can just plug in there, and just pretty much I'm on my own, just so every time I need a thumbnail image or a hero image, I don't have to bug my designer for it. So just to streamline processes. But I do use Canva currently, really even at the level that our company is. We're growing, and we're 2,000 plus people. So,
Yeah,
you
so
don't
there's
have to
always
be a
somebody on
small
staff.
business to
Yeah.
utilize it.
Right. Yeah, that's great though, because there's so many people they're so afraid to post on social media and things like that, just because their message is always so inconsistent. It never looks the same, and it doesn't necessarily have to be the prettiest picture in the world. It could be a solid color background with the same kind of text every single time. It creates that voice for your business on social media. That the idea is as you're scrolling down, you're going to catch this or this picture or this image or whatever you posted up there is going to catch your eye, and you're going to recognize it because you've seen it so many times and associated to that name. And that's the whole objective of branding.
Exactly. Especially nowadays with, the attention span. I think, forget, well, like a couple years ago, I was at a conference and I think in 3 presentations, people were like, human beings have a shorter attention span now than a goldfish, which is under 2 seconds. So, which is,
ridiculous.
Crazy to think about, but it is true.
It is true.
So now
true.
even more content has always been king, but now we have to think about creative ways to visually get people's attention.
Visual content. Yep.
Exactly.
So I kind of briefly sort of hinted at or foreshadowed, I guess, if you will, at the top of the program here, consulting. I've always sort of viewed you as an entrepreneur, and you've sort of been tossing around the idea lately about potentially open up a side consulting business. Can you elaborate on that, or is that still kind of kept under the rug?
Oh, no, it's not under the rug. I mean, nothing, once again, as a potential business owner myself, I'm doing a lot of research, doing that, just kind of seeing what's out there, especially in the area, but also, working, my network. I'm talking to people, taking my own advice for once in life and, tapping into my network and being like, hey, what do you think about this? Or would this be something that, you think there would be a need for? Because once I do get down that path, it's, more time, more effort, what you will. But I am, once again, like your investment portfolio, you should be, diversifying your employment portfolio as well. So I'm kind of learning that amidst the time that we are living in now. Unfortunately, like sometimes, you want to just have that extra source of income, have that extra, something that, that plan B, but also too, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head too. I've had this entrepreneurial spirit. I really like, helping watch companies grow. I'm avid, as we're kind of making the Shark Tank jokes, but avid Shark Tank watcher. And I love seeing I get a high off of seeing, those people go up there and kind of make their dreams come true. So if I could be part of that or help anybody do that from, an area where they think they may be weaker at, I'm happy to, open that door.
One of the things I've always admired the way you looked at your career was exactly what you said about sort of with your portfolio and sort of expanding it out and reaching into different areas. And I think a lot of people kind of forget about that when they're talking about their careers too. You get this degree and you get this focus and you sort of hammer down into one industry, and which is great because that's what you feel comfortable in, and you just keep pushing down that line. And what happens is, let's say that industry dies out at some point or it gets stale in your tastes. It's now a huge jump for you to kind of jump into a new industry or a new type of role. Whereas, if you sort of expanded your wings a little bit in the beginning and jumped around a little bit and tried, it doesn't have to be a completely different job, but just different aspects of your job. You've done it all at this point. And I'm sure there's things you love and there's things you hate, but at least you know how to do them all. So if you're ever asked to do those again in another capacity, whether it's a senior level capacity or, CareCentric is obviously in healthcare. Well, let's say you're done with healthcare, want to go into something like, finance. You can still do that because the tool set is so, it's so similar from one to the other. And now since you are so diversified across your experience, anybody looking at your resume isn't going to say like, okay, well, she's only got marketing experience in healthcare. She's not going to know how to do anything else. So they'll see, oh, you've done marketing in healthcare, you've done it in advertising sales, you've done it in small business. And even though they might not be our particular industry, we know that she's been able to adapt and subsequently grow her career. I think that's important for people to know. It's outside of just even being a small business owner, and you're obviously wearing multiple hats, but just as an employee or somebody that's looking to build their own career, that's really good advice. Just to kind of keep your head wrapped around, and maybe even just to jump into a career that you're not used to having typically. So
exactly, you never know too. Even if you come across or you kind of in your experience work with other people. People make career changes too. You know what I mean? Like just because today, I don't think I'll ever get out of the marketing space. But other things that you can expose you to another area in life, and you can always. I'm a big proponent too. You can always self-teach yourself. Like I would obviously go in the digital marketing sphere of, consulting. But if I was truly passionate about, I don't know, being a life coach, you can become a life coach. I can do that on the side as easily. If I wanted to, work part-time for SFX and learn how to code,
see, there you go.
I could go right now on, the Code Academy and start taking classes and then be like, hey, Shane, guess who knows how to code now? So
I tell people all the time that webcasts have become such an integral part of our business, and it sort of just happened by happenstance. I was asked one day, have you ever done a webcast? My answer was no. And they're like, okay, well, you're going to start hosting a webcast series for us every single week. And the idea of, I'm not in front of the camera per se, but I am voice-wise, my voice is echoing over on top of a presentation. And, it was so simple. And if you listen to those early webcasts in 2007 to the ones now, it's just, I was so quiet and welcome everyone to the Market Technicians Association. It was so just like, oh my God, I'm like mortified to do this. And it's just like, you sort of grab it and evolve. And I would have never guessed, I started as a programmer and then I kind of, I've always done web design, but I leaned into the web space because it was a little more social, a little more out front, a little more flexible. Coding can be very stressful. You're locked away a lot of time. Yeah, very isolating. Yeah. I love my coders and they're champions because it takes a lot of mental strength and mental prowess to do it. But, in the web design space, I would have never in a million years thought multimedia would be anything I'd even ever touched. But, to your point, you just, as you do something, you sort of pick up these other skills and you kind of pivot and you adapt and, subsequently you find something maybe you like and maybe something you never even thought of. So good to be flexible.
Speaking of that too, not to say I might be talking to the next YouTube star out there, but if you have also a skill, I think something that is so impressive, which is, I think I forget the name of the kid who does, is it Ryan or the toy reviews?
It's Ryan, Ryan, Having two children, I see a lot of Ryan these days, so for better or for worse.
Exactly, Ryan. Yeah. They pull in millions, and it's out of something. So, mind you, yes, a very now competitive field, but if you have a skill or something that you do well, I also admire those girls out there that are doing makeup tutorials and hair tutorials on, the internet.
Popular.
Like, that's something that, you can monetize and diversifies your, kind of employment and also your just skill set. And, you can create that own kind of brand for yourself, and it's essentially free. Other than your time investing in it, but other than that, it's essentially free.
Yeah, very low overhead for sure.
Exactly. And you can kind of and that's the beauty, I think, of, talking about, our entrepreneurial, spirits, is that we live in a time where, the world is our oyster. And, back in the days of Henry Ford, he didn't have the luxury of, going online and looking up what's the best business strategy,
right.
He defined it. And he worked in a totally different industry, but still similar, it's like you have the resources everybody has nowadays. You can't not, take advantage of just the, the technology and the resources we have in the digital space. They're endless. I gave you guys a few, little examples, but, you can, I hate to say it, this might be such a generational term that I use right now, but Google whatever you want, literally,
just Google you can find it. Yeah.
And you can find it. And, if you search enough, there's so much information out there.
Well, yeah, just the ability to research all of these things, you don't necessarily have to be an expert. If you have an idea, you don't have to be an expert in that particular field,
Exactly.
You figure out a way, or you have an idea how to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to be a wheel expert to try that out. You can do your research and figure out, how to craft with tools and, metal welding or whatever it might be that you have to get there. So it's important. That's the big drive behind that entrepreneurial spirit. And even just throwing yourself in front of a camera, it doesn't necessarily have to be the fanciest thing. There's tools out there that kind of clean it up a little bit. These videos are hardly the furthest thing from fancy, but the idea is just to get your thoughts out there, because it might help somebody and somebody might kind of grasp onto that and levitate towards it. And who knows, again, with Ryan, he was opening toys and all of a sudden it's this multi-million-dollar industry and he's got his own line of toys and stuff now. And there's literally just a little kid who enjoyed videotaping himself. And I assume his parents or maybe him just put it online one day, and a lot of other people liked it. It's so silly and stupid, but it worked. Somebody liked it, and that's kind of where we ended up. But I'm sure after watching this, there's going to be plenty of people with plenty of other questions. Maybe not today, maybe a little bit down the line. Danielle, is there some way people can reach out to you and ping you with questions, or potentially when you open up your consulting business? solicit you for some
Yeah,
help?
so I mean, for the time being now, you know, I'm on LinkedIn, so you can feel free to message me and or reach out personally. My Gmail is daniellezilg@gmail. It's pretty simple, but yeah, so feel free to, the door is open for, you know, any conversations or any introductions.
Great. Well, I'll have that up on the screen for you guys. If you don't see it right now, it should be right at the bottom right now or in the caption of the video. So please definitely check that out. Reach out to Danielle. Connect with her on LinkedIn if you are on LinkedIn. If you're not, definitely go up there. I was not a proponent of LinkedIn in the beginning, but I've come to really adore it. Just a great tool to just network a little bit. Danielle, I do thank you so much for joining us and sitting down with us and sharing your expertise. I know we could probably talk for hours and hours and hours on this stuff, as we usually do, especially over a couple cocktails. But for the sake of our audience today, we'll keep this kind of short and sweet. For sfx.com, my name is Shane Skwarek. Again, I hope you guys found some value in this, and hope you continue to check this out. We'll see you again next time. If you want to help